Hello, I'm Paul Blakey. It's great that you've been able to join with us. Back in the day, Halifax was known on a Friday and Saturday night as the Wild West of West Yorkshire. People used to travel from all over the north of England, often on coach tours, to Halifax for a night out. And they came for two reasons. First of all, it was cheap. You could get a pint of vodka or a shot of beer. Did I say that the right way around? Maybe it's a pint of beer and a shot of vodka for about 50 pence. And secondly, there were more pubs and clubs per square mile in Halifax than any other town in the UK. So people used to come for a good night out, and with these, the police reckon between 8,000 and 12,000 people every Friday and Saturday night. And with these 8,000 to 12,000 people came a whole load of problems and issues. Binge drinking was an issue, underage drinking, sexual assaults and violence had all become commonplace in our town centre. And I took my wife Jean on some romantic moonlit strolls round the town, and what we saw was quite horrendous. We saw people passed out in the gutter, covered in sick and all sorts of stuff, not in a good way. We saw the police kind of running from one fight to the next fight. And we saw people just randomly throwing glass bottles at people and people getting hit on the head with these bottles. We saw stuff happening down alleyways, and our town really was not the nicest place to be on weekend evenings. And as we wandered around, we thought, you know what, as Christians, we believe that our town deserves better than all of this stuff that happens. And we had this idea, wouldn't it be great to open a cafe that was owned by Churches Together and the YMCA as kind of a safe place drop-in? So we went to the Churches Together and the YMCA and asked their permission, and they said yes. They then said, we'll think you'll be murdered, but we'll say yes anyway. I'm not too sure what that says about me. And a week later, I was sat in a meeting with the town centre police sergeant, a chap called Dave Apsey. And I went up to him afterwards, introduced myself, and I said, what do you think of this idea? And this police officer got very excited, and it's always good to see excited police officers. He said, let me go away and talk to my bosses. He came back to us a week later, even more excited. He said, you know, lots of agencies have talked about the issues and the problems in the town centre on a Friday and Saturday night, but if you're actually prepared to do something about the problem as opposed to talk about doing something about the problem, we want to work with you, support you, we'll give you training, we'll give you access to the town centre radios, we'll do whatever we can to help make it happen. He then reached into his back pocket and produced a cheque for £1,000. You know, the police don't often turn up with a cheque for £1,000. He then said, you know what, we would love you to launch in 2 weeks' time. Friday the 25th of November 2005. And we thought, you know what, people in churches, people that are Christians are not that busy in December. So let's say yes, let's commit to a 6-week trial of opening up our cafe as a safe place drop-in. So we sent out an email. The local paper ran this very helpful front page headline that said, drop by if you're drunk, which wasn't quite where we were heading, but there we go. And we turned up, a group of 3-4 of us committed to turn up at our cafe every week between 9 o'clock in the evening and 3 a.m. just to open the cafe. That was our thinking anyway, as a safe place drop-in. So we turned up at our cafe on Friday the 25th of November 2005. If you know anything about nighttime economy, pubs and clubs, that was the date that the licensing laws changed. You know, pubs used to have to close at 11 p.m. and clubs used to have to close at 3. The government kind of did away with all that. So the police was wanting a fresh new approach to policing the town centre as of this evening. And we turned up not having a clue what to do and not having a clue what to expect, if we're honest. Amazingly, 50 people turned up to volunteer that night. 50 people who were concerned about our town centre, concerned about the issues and the problems, and just said, we want to be part of the solution, which I think is absolutely amazing. But we had a problem. Our cafe was not that big. In fact, 50 people in there with coffee tables and chairs and counters and all the rest of it. We had a problem in that if anybody wanted help, they couldn't actually fit into the cafe to receive help because too many people were sat there waiting to help them, which is a fantastic problem to have. So I thought, rather than sit here waiting for people to come to us, why not go out into the town centre, onto the streets to see what the needs and the problems and the issues are out there on the streets of the town centre. So that's what we did, and that's where Street Angels was born. home. Safe people patrolling the town, as well as offering this safe place drop-in back at our cafe base. The first night we went out in our normal clothes, probably dressed slightly better than most of the people in the town centre that night. I was certainly more prepared for the weather, the coldness of that November night. And the Saturday morning we went into the local market and bought every yellow jacket that we could lay our hands on, because actually if we're going to be out there and visible, it'd be great to have a visible high-vis uniform of some description. And so that's kind of where Street Angels was born, just a desire to do something in our town centre and actually just going for it, just seeing what we could do as a response to the needs and the problems and the issues. And for me, it was kind of proved that this was the right thing. On our second weekend, probably about 1:15 on Sunday morning, so Saturday night into Sunday morning, we came across this young lady, the two young ladies outside one of the banks. Were kind of tottering around on their high heels. And as we approached them, a team of three in our high-vis yellow jackets, they kind of helped themselves along the wall, with the wall guiding them, went round the corner into quite a horrible pub and club at the bottom of one of the roads. About half an hour later, we got a call to this pub, or the club part. One of these girls had passed out and was unconscious in the toilet, so the club had called an ambulance for her. The other girl was still conscious, so the club had kind of carried her out, sat her down on some steps and said, can either the police or the Street Angels come to help, please? So I turned up with two ladies in my team. The police turned up. The girl was quite violently sick. So the police said, we'll leave it to you to deal with. Thank you very much. Goodbye, which is very nice of them. And so we're left with this girl, quite a pretty girl, long blonde hair, not particularly well dressed for a cold, now Sunday, 1:30 in the morning, December. It was slightly drizzling as well. She'd been rolling around the toilet floor, so she was a bit of a mess. And we said, well, we can't just leave her here, sat in this alleyway in the cold and the wet. Let's take her back to our cafe. So we stood her up and she fell down. We stood her up again and she fell down. So we said, okay, then we can't walk her back to our cafe. Let's carry her back to our cafe. And so the two ladies that were with me, one kind of grabbed hold of her under the armpits, the other by the legs. And we set off from this alleyway, carrying this young lady through the streets of Halifax back to our cafe base. As we got to the end of the alleyway, another team of Street Angels who'd heard the call on the radio were coming towards us. And one came up to me and says, Paul, I'm her teacher. She's 14 years old. So we kind of thought, okay, we'll deal with that one later. We got her back to our cafe, we cleaned her up, we found her a change of clothes because, as I said, she'd been rolling around the toilet floor. And when she'd sobered up a bit and we found her mobile phone hidden on her in a place that only girls can hide their mobile phones, we managed to find her parents' phone number, phoned her parents, who basically said, don't send her home in that state, we're not interested. Eventually we managed to find her sister's phone number. Her sister agreed to come into town with a friend, picked up this girl to take her back to this friend's house. We thought nothing else of it other than we'd helped quite a vulnerable, what turned out to be a 14-year-old girl who was in a bit of a mess, and got her from the streets of Halifax safely to a friend's house. 4.5 years later, this same girl came up to me. She says, oh, you won't remember me, will you? I said, oh, yes, I do, and sort of recap the story. I think she was a bit shocked that I'd remembered. And she says, that night changed my life. And she began to unpack her story. She'd have been going out in Halifax every weekend from the age of 12. Often I wouldn't have money to buy drinks, so I'd go and do whatever with lads in order to get money out of them that would give me a night out. She says, my relationship with my family was messed up, my school life was going nowhere. She says, basically, my life was a mess. And her exact words were, because you idiots in yellow jackets decided that I was worth looking after, I decided that my life was worth more than the life that I was living. As after that weekend, she stopped going out drinking, she sorted out the relationship with her family, she settled down at school, she'd done well at GCSEs, she stayed on at school to do A-levels, and she was at home for the first Easter holiday from her first year at university. She says, my life changed when you idiots in yellow jackets decided that I was worth looking after. Isn't it amazing what a few idiots wandering around a town centre until 3 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday night can have? Well, we have this saying in Street Angels, love the person in front of you. And that's the heart of all that we do. It's about loving the person in front of you. And often it's very, very simple things that make that absolutely massive difference. I've got a few props here. I'll lean back a bit. Stuff like flip-flops. young ladies who go out on a night out, take off their shoes. Places, town centres, city centres are not the nicest of places to walk barefoot. So the number of times I've leant down, I've picked bits of glass out of a young lady's foot, wiped it over with some antiseptic wipe, put a plaster on it, and given her a pair of flip-flops to go on her way, which I think costs about £1 and is an amazing value for money compared with the alternative, which is phoning for an ambulance. So flip-flops. We also have first aid kits available, bottles of water. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but these kind of blankets that help keep people warm. The number of people that go on nights out in town centres that don't wear that many clothes. Obviously there's no way to hang coats in nightclubs. And the number of people that we've come across that are just suffering from hypothermia. And if we get one of those on them, get the body temperature raised, that is actually, making a massive difference in their lives. And my favourite thing that our teams have, don't know if you can just about see that, lollipops. Now, this is usually the part in the talk where I say, does anyone want to guess why we give out lollipops? So, does anyone want to guess why we give out lollipops? And the usual answers are blood sugar. But the real reason that we give out lollipops, have you ever seen anybody fighting with a lollipop in their mouth? Seriously, I don't know who discovered this, but it works amazingly. If we see groups of lads kind of sizing up to each other, what we do is we send in a volunteer, and this is where a little old lady works really well. And we say, excuse me, lads, would you like a lollipop? And immediately they kind of go from, what? Lollipop? Oh yeah, go on then. Because people like free things, don't they? If it's free, we'll have it. And so they take the lollipop, and by the time they've unwrapped it, because of course after a few pints, lollipops are hard to unwrap, put it in the mouth, they've forgotten they were fighting. It's amazing. I've seen it work time and time again. I was out with the Uxbridge team one week, and there must have been this rugby rugby group of lads on a night out. Uxbridge sort of town high street is quite wide by the underground station. 12 groups in a row, and they saw us in our bright orange, or I think they were orange down there, tabards, jackets, and they all said, street angels, great stuff, can we all have a lollipop please? So we ended up dishing 12 lollipops. So very, very simple things that make an absolutely massive difference in the lives of people who are out and about in town centres on Friday and Saturday nights. And amazingly, it works. In the first 12 months, violent crime in Halifax town centre, now violent crime normally increases on weekend evenings when alcohol and drugs and all of that are involved, actually reduced by 42%. The government, who were watching the figures very closely because of the change in the licensing laws, did this in-depth investigation as to why the Halifax police were lying, basically. And they worked out that no, the police were not lying, that violent crime really had reduced by 42%. And the reason for that was that A, the police were willing to work in partnership with other people, and B, people who care are out on the streets of the town centre simply caring for other people at a time when it most mattered. Isn't it amazing what a few idiots wandering around a town in fluorescent yellow jackets with the heart to just love the person in front of you can have? So because it works so well in Halifax, very quickly we began to get tours of a different kind. Instead of people coming on coach tours for a night out, they came for a night out with the Street Angels. And we began to kind of spread our wings and replicate this model all over the UK, in fact, all over the world now, because it works. People who care, just being out on the streets of a town centre, caring for people at a time when it is most needed. So we've kind of, in 2008, we set up something called the Christian Nightlife Initiatives Network, which now acts as an umbrella to support, resource, celebrate and promote the work of Street Angels. And we've now got teams from Dundee up in the north, in Scotland, through into Northern Ireland, all the way through England down to Newquay, and also into places like Magaluf, Tenerife, Seychelles, Wilmington, North Carolina. Very much this very simple idea in Halifax back in 2005, just expanding all over the world with people who care, just simply caring for their communities. We haven't just stayed on the streets. The lady that was heading up Leeds Street Angels, Beth, back in 2012, worked out that lots of the problems on the streets start inside the club venues. And so she went to the pub watch meeting one month and said, look, we'd love to kind of trial Street Angels in a club. And Tiger, which as a nightclub in the heart of Leeds, said, yeah, we'd love to work with you. So we set up this thing called Club Angels. Instead of wearing the fluorescent high-vis jackets that are a bit warm inside the nightclub, they wear t-shirts that says chat, help, listen and care. PS, we're Christians, ask us more if you want. And basically these predominantly young people teams just hang out in the nightclubs and see what people are up to, join in with the fun and the music and the lights and the dancing and all of that, but are also there if people need them. One of the first times that they ran in the nightclub in Leeds, this young lady, the lady night Club Angels were hanging out in the ladies' toilets. This girl walked in, read the t-shirt and just broke down in tears. It turned out she'd had a miscarriage that day, and her way of coping was to go into Leeds City Centre and just kind of get drunk, just to cope and forget and kind of handle the situation. So instead of getting drunk, she spent 6 hours sat on the toilet floor in Tiger, getting out all the hurt, all the pain, all the emotion. Eventually she was able to phone a boyfriend and a family who came to pick her up, and then she went on her way much more able to deal with the situation that had happened to her that day. So, you know, just by being there, we are making a massive difference. We have Club Angels in places like Tiger in Piccadilly in London, as well as a few student bars across the country. And it's just a great way of just connecting and reaching out, as well as to the staff, as well as the customers. Music festivals, I'm sure you're all regulars at music festivals. There's about 450, 500 now across the UK. Back in 2011, this 83-year-old lady at a village called Thorner, which is the top end of Leeds, all of her grandchildren used to turn up at her house and their friends for a shower from Leeds Festival. Leeds Festival, this massive music festival, 85,000 people at Bramham Park in Leeds every August bank holiday weekend. And they all used to kind of rock up. She'd hose them down, get all the mud off them outside, and then they'd all go in for a shower, for a good feed, and then go back to the festival site. And she got a real heart for the fact that these 85,000 young people turn up in her back garden, essentially, every year. And as a local church, she wanted to do something just to help them, connect with them, make sure that they're safe. So she went to the churches together and said, you know, we want to, I've got a heart for this. Shall we do something at Leeds Festival? And all the vicars kind of went, yeah, right, we'll never get in. So Leeds festivals generally, you know, it's all about money, you know, because obviously they've got that weekend to kind of trade and do what they do. And they said, yeah, well, you'll never get in. And she was convinced. She went home, she picked up the phone, got through to someone at Festival Republic who run Leeds Festival, and they said, we love the idea of the local church being around at the festival. What we'll do is we'll put you up a marquee free of charge, come and do whatever you want, which is quite a fantastic invitation, really, isn't it? So the first year, the local churches, very small churches, because obviously it's a village, got together and they went in and they ran this cafe. I think they ran from 2 till 4 on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Year 2, they were slightly more adventurous and pulled in a few more volunteers and ran this cafe from 9 till 5 on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Year 3, Festival Republic rang up Andy, who was kind of coordinating all this, and said, look, we love the dynamic that you guys bring. First of all, can we have your cafe, because we recognise it's a good, safe, welfare, escape the festival place. Can we have it open from 12 noon on Wednesday through the night to 12 noon on Monday? Secondly, we've seen these street angels that kind of wander around towns like York and Leeds and London, all these other places. We think we can have teams of detached festival angels that patrol the site offering help and assistance from 12 noon on Wednesday through the night to 12 noon on Monday. And thirdly, lost property. We don't kind of trust the company that are running our lost property at the moment. Can we kind of offer it to you guys? In fact, can we pay you to run our lost property service? And can you have that open from 12 noon on Wednesday through the night to 12 noon on Monday? So Andy kind of went, yeah, no problem. Then thought, what on earth have I just committed to? Rang me and we kind of worked together and we built this amazing team around us where we run these 3 different areas now at Leeds Festival, and it's just fantastic to be there. The cafe has developed a prayer cafe, so part of what we do is the teas and the coffees and the hot chocolates. In fact, we started to make these mugs. This is quite an old one now. This year's is going to be fluorescent green. These mugs which we sell for £5. And then that gives people unlimited free tea, coffee, hot chocolate, water for their pot noodles, squash for the entire music festival, which I think is a fantastic deal. We sold 5,500 of these last year. Fantastic queues, of course, every morning as people came with their cups to kind of fill up and get their morning coffees and all of that. It's just great to connect with young people. Some of them are going through some real desperate situations, and we're just there as people who care, people who have time to listen, who have time to chat, who have time just to let the young people get stuff off their chest and kind of connect with them in whatever way we can. So that's the Prayer Cafe. I head up the detached team, amazing teams of volunteers who patrol the whole festival site, and Leeds Festival is quite a big site. Early on in the week, we're about carrying luggage. You know, wheeler cases don't wheel that well on grass or mud. It's amazing. Putting up tents for people. The amount of people that buy a tent as they're coming through on the coach on the way to the festival, arrive at the festival site, don't have a clue what a tent is, never mind how to put it up. So if we turn up and just help people put up the tents, they think you're absolutely amazing. And then as the festival progresses, we're there around the arena just looking out for people, alerting security and first aid and welfare to situations, and just helping make sure that Leeds Festival remains this safe, fun, vibrant place to be for the people that are there. And lost property is always good. We have some interesting items handed in. An onion, I think, is probably the most bizarre. A wallet containing £650 in cash was handed in. We gave the young lady a lollipop for her troubles to say thank you for bringing it in. But it was amazing then to find this person's mum on Facebook. The mum then phoned a friend of the lad who was at the festival. Told the festival the boy came to pick up his wallet. I won't share his exact words when he discovered that the £650 in cash, driving licence, bank cards and everything else that you keep in wallet was all intact. It was along the lines of goodness me. I'll leave that to your imagination. But it's great just to be kind of part of this reuniting items with the people that have lost them. So again, because it works so well at Leeds Festival, other festivals began to get in touch with us and say, can you come and help, and can we have festival angels at our festivals? So running detached team, running safe hub caravans. We've kind of expanded that ministry as well. So from 6 festivals in 2018 to 16 festivals in 2019, which is quite a big jump, but doing things like Kendal Calling up in Penrith, Boardmasters down in Newquay, Why Not, Eastern Electrics in London, big ones over in Northern Ireland, up in Scotland, and it's just great to see volunteers kind of going out and making a real difference within their local music festivals. Leeds Festival now, we have 170 volunteers, and it's just fantastic to be part of them, fantastic to be making a difference, predominantly to young people, and just making sure that people have safe, fun, enjoyable music festival events. So other activities that we as CNI Network are involved in, train station angels, where we have angels based at some train stations, particularly where there's high suicide rates, and we just kind of look out for people, chat to people, smile at people. Often smiling at people can make a massive difference, in terms of clicking them out of whatever they're thinking about and putting them on a different track. So train station angels, community angels, who work within community settings, looking out for people that are vulnerable, people that are isolated, people that are lonely. Through the whole coronavirus situation, we had lots of our street and festival angels who obviously couldn't go out and do the street and the festival stuff, become community angels, offering to go and do shopping for people, having a number that people could ring locally if they wanted help and assistance, or just wanted someone to chat to or pick up the phone to, or message in on Facebook or whatever. Lots of different approaches. Youth angels that work with young people, a lot of detached youth work. So lots of different types of things, any kind of angels really, that just get people who care out onto the streets of our communities to make a massive difference. And that's kind of our story. It's fantastic to have shared this with you. If you want to know more, then I've written a book. It's true. People in Yorkshire, in Halifax, can write This is the evidence. That's a joke, of course, for anybody else in Yorkshire or Halifax. But if you want to know more, then this is available on Amazon, and you can get in touch via our website, cninetwork.org, and we'll post this out for a donation. So that's our book. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Do check us out. If you're on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, CNI Network. If you're on Twitter, we have a Twitter, CNI Net, and we have our website, cninetwork.org. So thank you very much. I hope that none of you ever need the services of our angels, but if you do want to come and join us as a volunteer, you'll be more than welcome. Come and suss out what we're doing. If there's a group local to you, do connect with them. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, and take care, and remember, love the person in front of you is the heart of all that we do, and makes a difference. In fact, I've just noticed we've got a few minutes left. I was asked to do a half-hour video, so we've got a few minutes left. I'll tell you a few stories to finish. Our team in Norwich, this is quite an incredible story. One Saturday night, Sunday morning, about 1:15, they were walking past the train station in Norwich, and the British Transport Police had with them this young lady, and so they kind of called the Street Angels team over and explained that this young lady had arrived in Norwich from Mexico. She met this man on the internet, budding romance, so she thought. She arrived, he kind of picked her up at Heathrow, took her back to Norwich, and it wasn't quite the relationship that she was after, and things had gone very wrong. And so at 1 o'clock in the morning, she kind of escaped from his flat, run full pelt through Norwich city centre to find the train station, and worked out that her idea was to get into London to try and find the Mexican consulate to receive help. Obviously the trains had stopped running, and so she was stranded in Norwich city centre, and so she'd gone to the police for help. The police then passed her on to our Street Angels team because they had finished for the night. The Street Angels team took her back to their base. They made sure that she had a good meal, kept her there until 4:30, and then as the shift was finishing, they thought, well, what can we do with her? We can't kind of chuck her back out onto the streets to the train station because this man that trafficked her here might come and find her. They had this idea, let's take her to Norwich International Airport, which if you know Norwich International Airport, the word international is a bit of a stretch. So they rock up at 5 o'clock in the morning at Norwich International Airport, deserted airport. The only person there was the young lady behind the KLM stand. They went up to her, they explained the situation and said, is there anything at all you can do to help? The KLM lady went onto her computer and printed out this girl a ticket from Norwich International Airport to Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam back to her home airport in Mexico. Now, I think that is the furthest we have ever got anybody home to safety, which is quite amazing. And after that she'd gone through security and was safe, the team went onto their phones and found that the walk-on fare for that journey was somewhere in the region of £1,800. And the cherry on the icing on the cake was she managed to avoid paying the £10 Norwich International Airport tax that every passenger has to pay. Just to like, yeah, we beat the system. So that was a sad situation that our team were there just at the right time and got that girl home. And a final story, one day I was walking through Halifax town centre several years ago. This lady came up to me and says, oh, you're one of those angel type people, aren't you? I said, I am, yeah. She said, my grandson had gone out the other weekend. Sat down on a shop doorway, fast asleep. And all of a sudden he felt this shaking on his shoulder. And he opened his eyes, as you do when you're woken up from a deep sleep. You kind of half open your eyes. And he saw these three figures stood there glowing, because we wear yellow jackets. And she said, you must have been stood under a street lamp, because she also looked to have halos on. And apparently one of the street angels leant into him and said, excuse me, son, are you all right? Can we take you to a better place? Apparently he woke up and sobered up quite quickly. But that's the heart of all that we do. It's about taking our communities and people in them on a Friday, Saturday night, or at festival events or in train stations or wherever, to a better place. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed that, and do look after yourself, and don't forget, love the person in front of you. Goodbye.